Welcome back to Fix It Tony. I have another project here today. This is a LED menorah. Hanukkah is coming up real soon, and I wanted to show that these LED menorahs are available and out there. I bought this one from Evil Mad Scientist, and it comes as a kit. So it comes in a bag like this, all ready to go. The instructions are really good. I'm really impressed by their instructions. Their instructions are sort of like a comic strip like, and they're actually quite well done, very well done. You probably don't need to watch this video in order to assemble it, but what you will get in this video is my interpretation of the instructions and things that they say look out for, and also general tips and tricks on soldering, because you do need to have a little bit of basic knowledge of soldering and some practice. So I figured this video is more of a complement to the instructions. I would certainly encourage you to follow the instructions when assembling this. I've purchased stuff from Evil Mad Scientists before, and it's a lot of fun to put together and work with. So they're not paying me for this. I bought my own kits and put them together myself. But the first step is we have to install all the resistors in these R, not R1, all through R through 8 slots. So you have to get the resistors out of the sleeve and you have to bend them. So it's pretty easy. You just kind of pull the tape off of one end, keep them connected, and then pull one out at a time. And to bend these, I recommend getting a bending tool like this. And if they're numbered, this is 0.5, I think this is 0.5 inches. And the way that you could measure it is you just take the bending tool and get it so that it lines up with the center of the holes, and just from experience, it's 0.5. If you get this particular tool, so it's a 1/2 inch, the resistor fits inside nicely in this groove. And for larger resistors, you have the other side, but I have smaller resistors. And then you just hold it down with one finger and then just bend it down. Hold it from the other side, bend it down. And basically, that's what you're going to do. And then it's just a matter of placing the resistors in the hole. Of course, I'm recording and I can't get it in there. Oh, actually, what we should do too is, if you look at the color striping, I don't think it matters. Resistors are not really polarized or directional, but just from a aesthetic standpoint, try to have all the stripes lining up on this in the same orientation. So the gold stripe is on the right side, and resistors usually flow left to right, and you read it from left to right on the resistor. So I'll just keep it that way, so when you're looking at the resistor, you can decode it correctly. And then you just flip it over and bend this 45 degrees each way, and that will help keep the resistor from falling out. And then we're going to continue to bend these and put them in, and then I'll show you what happens next. So I got my first column of resistors in, and they've been bent back. And the next step I would recommend is solder these in first, trim off these wires, and then we'll go on to the next row, just to prevent the cross interference of the next column of resistor wires. You'll sort of see how that could play a role in a second. All right, so I have my circuit board set up on these, you know, soldering station clippy things with a magnifying glass. Let me see if I could zoom out. So this is what it looks like, you know, just a basic. I actually got this from Radio Shack long time ago before they went out of business. So now I'm just going to try to zoom in here for you so you can see the process of the soldering. One thing, let me actually, I'm going to zoom back out. I'm using regular solder. This is a rosin core solder, pretty standard for electronics, and I am, you know, it's about, you know, about 3.5 inches, 3 inches long. I bent the tip. That's important to bend the tip, and I have my soldering. Just a basic, you know, I don't have these fancy things, but this works. And you have to tin it. And I have some tip cleaner and tinning compound here. And that's pretty clean. That tip is pretty clean. So the way we do these small circuits is, if I'm going to do the right side, my approach will be from the left, and then I'll switch hands and approach from the right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to be looking at my camera while I'm soldering. I have to look through the magnifying glass, so you'll sort of follow along. I'm holding it for about 3 seconds, and then boop, that's it. That's all it took. All right, same idea. I'm holding it at the base for about 3 seconds. You can see how the tip can get, the opposing wires can get in the way. All right, that worked. Yeah, when you get a big glob of solder on your iron, it makes it hard to be precise, so you got to be careful. All right, I'm calling that done. So now that these are done, it only takes like 10 seconds for them to cool off. And what you're going to do is get very tiny side clippers, side cutters, designed for small work, and you're going to try to get as close and flush as possible. Okay, and you're going to cut all of these leads off. You got to get as close as possible, because the legs that are going to slide over, you don't want them to get caught by the little hanging leads. All right. And all right, now I'm going to put, you got to find the capacitor. It looks like this. You should be able to just pull it out. Or peel it off. There we go. And we're going to find C1, pretty straightforward, capacitor 1. Doesn't matter the direction. Just shove it in. All right, same idea. We're going to bend it 45 degrees, and then we're going to solder it. So we're going to take this switch, again, direction doesn't matter, and push it all the way in. It's already pre-bent, so friction is going to hold it in place, and then we're going to solder these two connections. All right, so the switch is in. You can see how these points do stick out a little bit. That's enough that when we try to slide these legs underneath, they get caught up right there. And then if you try forcing it, you break these kind of delicate legs. So same idea, you need to trim this excess down. And, just a couple thou is enough, hook it up. So the next step is the CPU or the control board. That's the next step. And so you're going to grab, that's what this looks like. Remove it from its foam protection. You're going to find a semicircle notch right there, very faint, but there's a semicircle notch right there, and that's going to correspond to the notch right there on the circuit board. So you're going to carefully insert the board into the holes. While holding it, you're going to flip it over. Here's where a pair of fine tip needle nose come in handy. You have to bend the the ends, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Just bend those leads out a little bit. So that the board, I guess you could use a flat blade screwdriver to bend these. And that's it. It's loose, but it's not going to fall out. I'm ready to set up. Always remember that you should always clean your soldering tip. So just go back to your cleaner, dip it in there, use a wet sponge, get it nice and shiny. And here's where you just gotta go slow, or not slow, but you're gonna have a rhythm. And just remember to hold, count to 3, 1, 2, 3. And touch, and touch. Try to be quiet as I'm concentrating. And there we go, all set. Now we'll let this cool, and then I'm going to go through and trim all these leads back as well. Now what sometimes happens is solder will leak through, as it did here, which is fine. Just means that I probably put too much solder. But what we don't want to have happen is solder bridging any of the leads on this side. And you can see here that it isn't, nor is any of the solder bridging any of the leads on this side. So we know we have a good set. So to begin working on the LEDs, you're going to want this spacer. I want my LEDs to be a little higher up off the circuit board. I don't want them to be flush on the circuit board. Totally up to you. If you prefer to have the LEDs completely flat and touching the circuit board, then you don't need this spacer. But I'm going to put the spacer in because I like the look of having the LEDs sort of floating. I like that look. Personal preference, totally. You guys can do whatever you want. So you've got to slide this spacer on. And you put it on so that the cardboard is basically vertical and sort of bifurcating or bisecting the LED holes so that it stays balanced. And remember, the short leads are negative. I don't know how you can tell. There. Short lead is negative. The short lead, as you can see here, the circles. You can see here everywhere where the LEDs go, it's circular, but then it has a flat end, flat surface or flat top with the numbers. So you want the short end, the negative end, to go in through that hole that's adjacent to the flat side. And I'm only going to do 4 LEDs at a time, solder, trim, 4 LEDs at a time, solder, trim, and then I'll put the middle candle in. All right. You don't want to push down too hard on this bracket. So this is just paper. If you push down too hard and you twist this, it becomes a lot harder to take out the cardboard later. All right. And then it's just a matter of just enough pressure to hold that so that you can split the LED. If the cardboard is a little bit too tight there, that's okay. I like to have a little bit of looseness. All right. Once you have these 8 LEDs soldered in, you then tear off, nice setup, hey? You tear off this little piece here. Ideally, you tear it off without damaging an LED. There is a perforation, but I think it tears better off at the thinnest part. Then if these LEDs were soldered with just a little bit of looseness, you should be able to slide this paper out. Now, of course, it's going to have to slide in between the paper, and easier said than done. There. Let's see if it'll go through the middle this time. Yeah, you know, because this is a little bit collapsed, right? So and typical. That's what might happen in reality. So what you do is there. Some of these got a little bent. So these LEDs are relatively resilient. Try not to bend it too much. Otherwise, it'll break off. Now this final LED has to be taller than the others. So I'm going to generally do it like that. So eyeballing it, maybe like that. Once you have all the LEDs, then it's time for the last step, which is soldering these power wires. It is important, red positive, black negative. And on if you're looking at the board this way, the power solder connections are on the right side, and you'll see a V positive and V negative. And what you need to do is you have 2 holes here. You have a bigger hole and a little hole. The little hole is for the stripped wire. The big hole is for you to push the wire up and create a little stress relief bend and back down, sort of like this. And then pull the excess back, and I leave about the height of the LED is about what I put as the stress relief. And then I just bend that back a little bit. Same idea. Drive that up, bend it down, fish it through. And then, where's that hole? There. And then I'm pushing down with my finger while pulling gently. And you can see, and then I'm just going to make it the same height as the black. Then I'm going to flip it over and grab my little third hand, and make these solder connections, and then trim it, and then we'll get back to assembling the legs. Next is inserting the bateria in the juicer here, and nothing is turning on yet, so hopefully the switch is off. Oh, whew. Switch is off, switch is on, and we have lights. So we'll just push the button here to cycle through, opening up the legs. Be gentle opening this up, because this is just plastic legs. And what you got to do is peel off all this paper. So this is if you have a kid, have your kid do it. So once you have the paper, oh darn, I didn't do this one. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, so when you insert these legs, you'll see these little grooves. The circuit board goes right in between there. So if there is a failure point, it's right at the tippy top here. And I've had them break before. I've just crazy glued the circuit board to the leg. That's one solution. Another solution was I recently, when I bought my next round of kit, I just bought a few extra legs. So if they do break, then I have an extra pair. When you insert them, it's best to insert from the end opposite these cables, so you don't have to worry about fishing these wires in the box back through. Just start from one end and go all the way through. I'm trying to look through the camera. And you can see that by trimming those leads, all of them, you bypass any problems with sliding the feet. Next one. Jeez. All right. So once you get these legs roughly where you think you want them, insert the battery case. You'll insert the battery case where the switch, you can either mount it on the front or facing rear. All depends on how your hand goes, but I think I'm going to go face front this time. So yeah, the motherboard or the circuit board does slide quite freely. If you are so inclined to drop a piece of crazy glue right in there just to keep this from slipping around, go right ahead. But that's basically it. We're done. Thank you so much for watching this video instructions of assembling an Evil Mad Scientist LED menorah. Please like and subscribe, share this. If you're curious about these resistors and their resistance, what their rating is, They are rated at 16 ohms. If you get your trusty multimeter and set it to resistance or the ohm setting, and just get some leads and place the leads across the resistor, you'll get a sense of what the reading is. So these resistors, if you actually decode the coloring, they will be 16 ohms plus or minus 5% error. So it can be anywhere from 15.2 to 16.8 ohms to be within factory spec. And you can just see here, this is 15.86, so that's within spec. This one here, randomly 16.25, and then another one randomly, 15.77. So it's kind of cool. You can kind of measure the actual resistance of each resistor, and it's all within their rating. But just, to be a little nerdy about, these resistors and their rating.